Hello and welcome to Happy Horror Time Podcast. My name is Matt Emmert.
And I'm Tim Murdoch. I was lucky enough to meet today's special guest 23 years ago at my acting showcase.
Holy crap.
The same year, the first feature film he directed came out, which happened to be the horror sequel, Urban Legends Final Cut. He's a true Hollywood unicorn, having also composed the scores for so many favorites like Halloween H2O, House of Wax, Orphan, and many more. And he even won an Oscar for editing 2018's Bohemian Rhapsody. Please welcome to the podcast, John Ottman.
Great to be here.
Hi, how's it going with you today, John?
Digging me up for UL2. Okay.
UL2. I love that. I have an Urban Legend too. UL2. So John, we were doing some research on you, and we read that you grew up in San Jose, California, where you used to write and record radio plays on cassette tapes and did like most of the voices yourself. So we've got to ask, were any of these plays horror themed, and what kind of voices did you do?
They were usually actually almost always science fiction themed, where we were on a space station or there were some aliens attacking Earth or something. So, and those evolved into Super 8 movies, some of which became very, very extravagant. We did, it mostly culminated in my friend and I did an hour-long Super 8 science fiction epic with all the people in the neighborhood. We had like 70 actors, and it took us 2 years because we had to build sets. And every time we had to, film in the set, then tear down the set, then build a new set. We only had one big garage to film in my friend's parents' 3-car garage. So we'd open up the doors in the garage and then build walls around the doors so that it was even bigger for these sets. And the funny, you mentioned it, and I know we're not talking about that, but I'm just discovering Topaz AI, the remastering. You can sharpen film and bring out the details that weren't there before, or from faded film and so forth. So I'm going through my old Super 8 movies and remastering them now with the AI, and it's really going back in time to really happy times when I was just completely in control and making movies. And so I'm doing all my USC movies now. So it's pretty amazing.
That's awesome.
Where can people see them?
Well, they're not ready yet. I mean, the science fiction epic, I learned the Topaz AI program on that one. And then from what I learned on that one, I'm doing my 5 student films at USC, which are probably going to take another year because each one takes a couple months to do. I'm really going in, remastering the sound, and any scores I used, I'm going back to those score and then re-importing and having it be in stereo now. But it's a lot of fun. Yeah. But when they're done, I will definitely let you know because I want to have like a big screening. And the big science fiction epic is a gas. We had like a 7-foot long spaceship and a big star field we built in the garage. And
how old were you when you were doing these things?
I was 16 when we did that film.
Wow.
So by the time I went to USC, I was so like a veteran of making pretty advanced Super 8 movies. So it's a shame because people today watching Super 8 film don't appreciate that, we didn't have the tools that the kids have today or people have today in making films. We had like a crappy Super 8 film, Super 8 camera. You had to develop the film, it's all scratchy, and you have a work print and then limited sound capabilities. And so it was quite a feat to produce something, to show something. Even last night, I was watching the remastered Blade Runner, all those models and everything. It is astounding. And people take for granted watching something like that today because they just figure it was CGI drawn into computer, but all those cityscapes and everything, it was multiple models and, different optical passes. And it's just, I was just blown away watching that last night. So
I love that movie.
Yeah. And so obviously we also read that what you were saying about like turning your parents' garage into a movie studio and creating these big films. And we read that you would edit in scores from your favorite movies. Were there any specific scores that you used, or like what were your all-time?
Oh, it's like every. I mean, one movie there could be like 25 scores. So inevitably it was Jerry Goldsmith and James Horner and maybe Pino Donaggio, who's this random horror composer from Italy who did Dress to Kill and a lot of Tourist Trap and those weird things because they were sort of appropriate for some of the those sort of quirky films I was doing. I mean, speaking of horror, though, my very first movie I did in high school for the class project was a horror movie. So there you go.
Ooh.
Ooh.
What was it called and what was it about?
It was called Whatever Happened to Mr. Jones's Class. And it was basically, just dead bodies everywhere. What happened? How did they all die? Kind of thing. It was just like a 8-minute, Super 8 thing.
So wait, what did happen to Mr. Jones's Class?
Well, that's on the list to remaster too.
We'll wait.
So growing up, what horror films had an impact on you? I mean, like which ones did you watch over and over?
Bar none, Alien, because it's a fusion of science fiction and horror, but it is a haunted house movie. But it's a masterpiece, and just watched the remaster of that a couple months ago, which is
that's a great movie. Wow. I like the Aliens score.
Yeah. Do you? Here's a controversial question for you, John.
Yeah.
Do you? Well, I think I know the answer to this, but Alien or Aliens?
Alien.
Like Alien. Okay.
Because Alien, you're scared shitless because there's one thing you can do nothing about. Mm-hmm. Aliens, which is a great movie and a lot of fun. I've seen it a million times, but that's more of a shoot 'em up movie where there they are, shoot one, it's dead. And so it's not, to me, it was never that scary. It was just sort of a thrill ride kind of. There were scary moments, but yeah, Alien to me was just terrifying. And even when I saw Alien, I was sort of already sort of this weird veteran of making movies, and so it was hard to get me convinced that I was in a movie when I was watching it. I would always just see the screen, the people in front of me. I could never really get engulfed in it. And Alien made me forget I was in a theater, and it just it had a huge impact on.
I agree. I just recently saw it like on a big screen. It is so much better. The original Alien.
I don't think I've seen the original on a big screen. I mean, obviously I've seen it a million times, but not on a big screen.
You're missing out.
I was too
I
young.
Know. You attended USC Film School. Which aspect of film did you focus on? Editing, directing, or composing?
Well, not composing. Composing was something I fell into later. It was a hobby, that became a career. But it was basically directing was the aim. To go to the whole reason I went to film school was to be a director, which is what a lot of us go in there for, and then we got sidetracked into different careers, and so editing was just a byproduct of making movies. And I took a directing course there, and this is how I ended up working with Bryan Singer. Is I was known for how well put together my directing pieces were in this directing class I took. And so Bryan saw that. I guess he saw some things I directed. And so the first step was, after he saw that, no, I'm sorry, see all these memories coming together.
No, please.
A director of a thesis project at USC, where Bryan was a PA on that film, saw my directing reel and hired me to re-edit his movie, which was a mess. And Bryan, being the PA on the film, had a bird's eye view of watching something be taken apart and put back together again and retold. And so then he hit me up about working together on a little 20-minute movie, a diner kind of film, about kids coming back together after their first semester in high school in a diner.
Was that the one with Ethan Hawke?
No, that's the one with
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. I was thinking Diner with Kevin Bacon.
Oh yeah. No. This is like a 20-minute movie we shot in Hawthorne, California, and late at night when Diner was closed, and I ended up co-directing that because Bryan had these aspirations of being like a Woody Allen, acting in his own movie, and he was so catatonic. He had to get drunk to basically be able to act, and so I was having to pull the thing together, and so he gave me directing credit, of course, which I deserved. I mean, co-directing credit. So and that was sort of the beginning of things to come. It didn't change much after that. So that's how it all began, kind of.
Wow. Well, so here's the thing for listeners that are listening to this, like, John obviously has an incredibly extensive career across all genres. If you look at his IMDb, you'll be able to see
it's impressive.
Unbelievable. But being a horror podcast and all, we are going to be focusing on John's contributions to horror. And of course, that includes the feature film that you ended up directing, 2000's Urban Legends Final Cut. So our first question about this is, like, after you had worked in editing and music for a number of years, so what made you at that point to take on directing? Was there something like about horror or about the first Urban Legend film that attracted you to this?
No, I actually didn't want to do it. And Phoenix Pictures convinced me to do it because they had worked with us on Apt Pupil, a movie that Bryan and I did. And they kind of saw how Bryan how the film was really put together. And so they hit me up. They says, you're a director. You should be directing films. And I said, yeah. And I remember that's right. That's why I got into this whole thing in the first place, was to direct. I forgot about that. And I said, well, what is it? And they said, well, it's urban legends too. And I was like, oh, because it's like when your grandmother, gives you a present, you open it up and it's polka dotted underwear or something, and it's like, oh, okay, well, thanks, So I was
just like, so if we had gotten an option to work on urban legends too, it would be like opening up the best present on earth. But
because frankly, I was never, even though my first movie in high school was a horror movie, I wasn't my focus is doing a horror film. The reason is a good story is a good story. If it's horror, whatever, I'll embrace it. And I will kill to do that kind of film if the story's good. My reservations were that at that time, horror movies were becoming a joke because of Scream, and so I was like, well, now you're going to have me do a horror movie, which we're supposed to take seriously, was going to be a high order because anything horror now is looked at as funny, And so I said, I don't think it's the right move for me, And then of course my music agent of all people was like, what are you, nuts? It's like, James Cameron got to start doing Piranha or whatever, and I
Piranha
said,
too.
Yeah, Piranha too. And I said, well, that was a different era. And everything. So I kind of grappled with it. And, and I literally had my music agent saying, you don't want to do background music for movies. This is my composing agent, you want to do like, direct. And I said, yeah, I do. And I just don't know if it's right. Anyway, so I went back to Phoenix and I said, look, I'll do this, but I need to make it sort of something that's sort of, more Hitchcockian, like more thriller-like, which was the backdrop kind of the film anyway, and so
the Hitchcock Award
and all that. So, because I said that at least make it something different, it's not the same old thing. And because one of my arguments against doing the film was that, in Urban Legend 1, you have a built-in audience that's wanting to see dogs exploding in microwaves and people being force-fed Drano. And I go, so if we're not making that movie, it's going to be sort of like it's going to be disappointing to them. But at the same time, I kind of don't want to make that movie. And so they go, well, let's not make that movie. Let's do the Hitchcock thing. But even though that was something I wanted to do, I still was reticent because I said they're going to be wanting to see people being force-fed Drano, So, so we set off and made that movie, and it turned out really well. For that kind of movie, and all the first death was off screen, you kind of like, what happened, you're putting the clues together, and we test screened it, and the first test screening went extremely well, but everyone was saying, why are people not dying sooner, And I said, I knew it, and so we went off and did this reshoot and came up with this.
What was your first impression of the original script? Like, how much changed?
Well, the original script was, in your familiar old Gothic school, which we've seen a bazillion times. And I can't remember all the things that I changed. But I sat with the writers for, God, it must be weeks to configure the script, and then on a location scout. I just didn't want to do the same thing. So we discovered the school in.
Which is beautiful, by the way.
Yeah,
Trent University. Such a wow factor.
Trent University in Ontario.
Trent University. I go, this is perfect. It's a film school. It should be more modern, and it's just so. And there's something that was oddly creepy about it too, the way you could light the campus, and I was insistent there be a tower, which the school didn't have, and so that was a big budget eater. But that was a must for me. So we built into the script this tower. That could be the sort of looming, mysterious thing. And then I'm just sort of truncating probably a bazillion things, but then we sort of.
No, it's okay. We have a ton of questions about it. And so we're going to cover like everything. The reason he had asked about the script is because in this sequel, Loretta Devine reprises her role as the security guard Reese. And then there's even a cameo from Rebecca Gayheart at the very end. We were just wondering, was there ever any talk about trying to get Alicia Witt or Jared Leto from the original film back to continue?
No, there wasn't. This was, I can't say it was that low budget. The budget was $15 million. And I came in at 14 million, by the way. So I said a million.
Good job.
And
Because I'm so freaking organized.
That's not so low.
It was decided that they wanted a whole new cast and so forth, and with newbies and because here's the reason. They really weren't sure this was ever going to be theatrical, and this was before the world of streaming or anything, But so they just thought maybe this is going to be dumped to be a what do you call it?
Straight to video.
Direct to video thing.
And you have Jennifer Morrison, you have Matthew Davis, Joey Lawrence, Jacinda Barrett, and Eva Mendes. I mean,
right, but at the time, these were, except Joey Lawrence, they were no people didn't know these guys, and so skipping to the end, the studio was so thrilled with how I sort of like brought this to something way beyond what they had expected, despite the fact it is what it is. But for their expectations were so low, so they were so elated they decided to make it theatrical. So that's.
Do you happen to remember anyone that came in for audition for this movie that
like any people that we'd know? Because back then that were low, big small stars, but who we'd know now.
I remember the guy who played Cisco's son from Deep Space Nine came in to audition for the Anthony Anderson part.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's cool, because I was a Star Trek fan, but it wasn't right. And then
any teen stars like Reese Witherspoon, that Jennifer Love Hewitt.
No, they did want. I know the studio really wanted this girl named Amy Smart.
Oh, I remember her.
So we know
for the lead, and I just didn't think she was right for the part, and because I spent a lot of capital to get Jennifer on that film because she just seemed like the perfect actress for it, and one of the biggest dramas I had with the studio from the beginning was convincing them to go with the cast I wanted, and this is before I even started the movie, so I didn't have a lot of capital yet. But I burnt a lot with that because you live or die by your cast, and so we did all these test screenings and so forth, different scenes with different actors and so forth, and so I proved my point with Jennifer, and they said you're right, and so we went on, we cast her, and Matthew and everyone else fell into place.
No, it's a great cast.
It was his first movie, right?
Oh,
Matthew Davis.
Yeah. He looked like young Harrison Ford to me. He
does. Another cast member that we of course know from his horror past, Hart Bachner, who plays Professor Solomon.
Right.
We of course know he was Doc in the original Terror Train. Did you know about his horror past at the time?
No, all I knew was the Die Hard, role, of course.
Oh no! What about Supergirl?
I know.
He was in Supergirl.
Yeah, he was the leading man. Like he was the one that she had the hots for.
You're kidding.
Mm-mm.
Wow. And that's a Jerry Goldsmith movie. How don't I not notice that?
You know that the Supergirl score at the beginning, is that Jerry Goldsmith?
Yeah.
It goes up forever. I love
and then
it.
we have to ask, what was it like working with Joey Lawrence? Was he difficult? Just kidding.
How many times did people say "whoa"?
No, the Joey Lawrence was like a Tom Cruise, or just like let's do it. What are you gonna do? He'll be there early. He'll stay late. He'll do whatever has to happen. He was super enthusiastic and just super team player and he's actually a really good actor. It's too bad I killed him with this movie.
Speaking of going through some of the scenes, like we read that the original opening scene when they're filming like a horror movie within a horror movie was supposed to take place on a boat, not a plane. So what brought about that change?
Yes, it was a boat for the longest time, and we were looking through sound stages on a location scout for some other reason. And at the time, going through my head constantly was how are we going to pull off this boat thing? Because it was like water gushing in and so forth, and budgetary problems. And I had all these extravagant things planned for the boat. If we're going to do it, we got to do it right. And so then we were walking by a sound stage, and I looked through the door, and there was an airplane set from a movie called Pushing Tin. And I was like, there's a set ready to go pretty much for us, and let's change it to an airplane. So I sat together with the writers and we rejiggered it for an airplane. So that saved a tremendous amount of money. And of course, this was prior to 9/11. And, we had, cockpit guys being knifed with, and so I think for the video release of it, because by the time the video release came out, 9/11 had happened, and so they originally had edited heavily for the video release, and then I guess it's back to normal now. But
yeah. Oh wow, I didn't even think about the timing.
The timeline is a year before.
Yeah, because there's a killer on a plane and it's going down. Yeah, I guess that.
I think they got the idea for my movie. I don't know.
Oh God. No. Well, okay. So then we read that the whole scene where Jacinda Barrett wakes up in a tub with her kidney missing was actually a reshoot. Now, first off, I've got to say this is one of our favorite scenes in the movie. It's just
the thing is, it was we came up with this character so we could have a death in the beginning of the movie because it took so long to have a real death on screen because Matthew's character's death was an off-screen death. So we came up with it, and I'm like, you know what? If they want a death, we're going to give it to them because I'm all about, despite the fact that I'm not a big horror fan. If I'm going to see a horror movie, fucking go for it. I want to see fucking eyeballs pulled out. I want to see, I want to see Halloween 2 and Halloween or those Evil Dead movies. I want to see some guts, and so I just went for it and had a gas. And I remember when we had the studio at Sony. Was it Amy Pascal? Maybe she came in and she saw the scene. She goes, I don't know. This is like really, mortifying. I go, yeah, because I came up on, even though we wrote the scene, I came up with more things on set to make it grosser. Like,
the decapitation.
No, that was in the scene, but I had the killer pick up her kidneys and throw it out the window for the dog to eat.
Yes, and when the killer pulls it through the window, like he puts his hand inside her wound and pulls.
Right. Yeah. So I came up with the second one. Let's just do it. Because I'll have fun doing that if we want to just go for it. So yeah, and it became a really fun sequence. And became the movie kind of that. Again, as I'd predicted, that the Urban One legend, even Urban One, crowd wanted to see. That's the movie they wanted, And then it sort of did a lap. Then, of course, after the death, it laps back into the Hitchcock movie I made, So,
well, what's a funny connection? The end of the first Urban Legend, when Rebecca Gayheart has Alicia Witt captive, and she is mentioning the kidney kill and that she's about to cut her. So it's really interesting that your movie, then the first big kill is that kidney kill, which, by the way, everyone knows that Urban Legend, so it's just perfect for
right. And that's also one of the problems with Urban Legends because there's only so many Urban Legends that are cool, and so we were at our wits' end to come up with some stuff, for Urban Legends.
By the way,
Jacinda Barrett, she went from the real world.
I've never thought I would see the girl from the Real World London get decapitated. So
yeah,
and I was concerned that can she really do it? Can she really give it her all in terms of the screaming and the terror? I was just always afraid they're gonna be too timid to do it, and she just gave it her all.
She was great.
So I gotta ask, as horror big fans, was the part when she first gets abducted under the plastic garments, was that an homage to the original Black Christmas?
No,
because she's in that huge closet.
You're like, which movie? No, because she gets basically.
I didn't see it.
You've never seen Black Christmas?
Oh, you got to see it. It's 1974. It's Bob Clark, who also directed A Christmas Story. Funny enough, one of the first slasher films ever in the 70s, but even before Halloween.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I just never ended up seeing it. Yeah,
you can watch the 2006 one. You may not want to watch the 2019, but
yeah. Well, in the original one, the first kill, she gets strangled at first by plastic garments. So I was like, this is a very cool.
I was like, oh, cool.
But you know what? You can just say it was an homage.
Yeah,
right.
Just lie to us.
Plastic is creepy. And when I did still photography in college, I did these weird disturbing photos of a girl wrapped in plastic and like under a table with plastic lit from behind some weird plastic shit. So maybe I just wanted to continue my whole plastic thing. I don't know.
So you directed, composed, and edited this movie. Which one was the most easiest or most difficult?
I would say directing is it's arduous. It's and we had a lot of night shoots and so forth. And I had back surgery in the middle of the movie, so it was a lot of drama. So it was quite, and I lost all my hair. So I had to
from the surgery.
Well, what happened was I had a disc that was so out, like 15 millimeters, and I didn't want to have the medical exam say that you couldn't direct the film because your back is so fucked up. So I crawled to the health screening that they give a director before the movie, and I feigned that I was all fine, sweat coming down my brow because I was such pain, crawling basically probably to the medical exam. And then I thought, this is such a confidential story I'm telling now. Who cares?
No, please.
But I mean, I do know that you have to, like, directors have to get like a medical.
Yeah, because there's an insurance policy to cover the director, and if you come in with like a heart problem, your insurance policy will be higher, of course, for that director. Or if you're like 80 years old, it's a very high insurance policy for the studio. So I thought, well, in pre-production, I can just be in a wheelchair and preserve my back. Fortunately, sitting relieved my pain, and I'll get better by the time we shoot. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And when we were shooting for the first week, it was raining. I was literally laying on cement in the amusement park set in like level 10 pain, screaming. And I realized this is not going to work. So they flew me home for emergency surgery, which, boom, I was good. I was fine. After a week, I came back. But we lost a week of shooting, and that was expensive. So there was a insurance claim, and I got sued at the end of the film. But the studio was so happy with the movie that they paid half of the insurance claim.
Wait, so did you lose all your hair from the stress?
Oh, so what happened was I was so stressed out during that, and I was taking so many drugs to try to get rid of the pain. And I was literally, I was exploring things like taking shark cartilage, and my assistant told me she had this guru that if I took a picture of my stomach, and wrap it into Polaroid and foil and send it to her, this woman she knows, that she can analyze my aura. I mean, it was doing crap like that to try to figure out how to solve this. And
I believe it.
You wanted to direct this movie.
Yeah. So then what happened when I got back from surgery, all my hair started falling out. So it was either from the general anesthesia combined with the stress, and it was coming off my whole body, everything. And so I remember we were having a party at someone's house, and it was the star of Strange New Worlds, who was one of the cast members of my movie, was saying, I overheard him saying, "What's up with John's hair? It's like coming out. He looked like I'd mange, right?" So then the studio was getting horrified because they were seeing I had lost like 20 pounds, from just the stress and the surgery and everything. And my fingers looked like skeletal. I looked like a horror movie character, And so, but in the director's cut period, I have 6 to 8 weeks or something like that alone, that no one can bother me. No one could see me. So during that time, I went to Hair Club for Men, and I got this fucking wig, which you can't call that. It's a system. It's a system. It's not a wig, but it's a wig. So, and I put that on my head so the studio would calm down, that I wasn't dying or something. And so during reshoots, I remember my producer, not having seen me for a couple of months, was like looking at me like weird, like full head of hair, that I never had before, And it looked amazing, but the glue starts coming loose, and it's terrible. But and then what happened was, in the hair club, people said, "Hey, we've never seen this happen before." My hair started coming back, because what happens is, this is so detailed, but when you go in to service your system, they always shave any hair off your head so it'll stick on when they every 2 months you got to service your system or put a new one on. And but they saw that my hair was coming back, so I said, in the future appointments, don't shave my head. And so they said, "Oh my God, your hair's coming back." It was coming back into my underarms, and so it was this weird thing. And so there's not a day that goes by I don't thank God I have a head of hair, because
let me just say, listeners, you are not going to hear this shit on IMDb.
Yeah. He's not gonna
that was a horror movie in itself for me, but
this is happy horror time.
You really went through it.
Wow. I mean, that is crazy.
I think directing was the worst part. And then, although but I did enjoy it. I mean, I really was on fire, because it came to me naturally because of just all the years, kind of being a closet director with Brian and so forth, and making all the movies on my own and my own little projects. And so it just was like riding a bicycle for me,
Speaking of like the score for this movie, since you did that, did the score for the first Urban Legend influence any of your score for this one?
No, not really. I wanted to hearken, that the Christopher Young's theme, briefly here and there when I think the one time I hearkened it was when there's a car
Loretta Devine.
Where? Huh?
Loretta Devine.
When Loretta's
and this car scene where she talks about the past experience she had, and I brought it up. No, I was sort of in retrospect, I was intimidated by my own temp score for that movie. Directors I have confidence in what I do, but directors are always insecure. And I created a temp score which worked, and I was terrified of veering from it. And it was my music editor and other people I knew saying, John, it's like, just step back for a moment. You can do your own thing. And so I regret that a lot of that score was very influenced by the temp, where I wanted to give homage in one way to a movie. So I can excuse it in that way, because I really was giving homage to Poltergeist and like Alien and so forth. But I don't know.
It's a beautiful score. I ran out and got the CD.
The theme I'm very proud of, because that was thoughtful. It was sort of like me. It was so me that was me, because it was original. It was, and it was it had the intelligence behind it and so forth. It's some of the incidental scenes, the horror scenes, I feel like I veer a little too far into paying too much homage to like Poltergeist, and there was only like 2 scenes, but it still bothers me. But anyway.
That's beautiful. So in the final scene, like you're a mental patient, but we weren't able to spot you.
Yeah, so it's a cameo. Where are you in that scene?
Oh, it's very brief. It's when we're dollying past all these pillars in a train station. It's not a train station. It was a train station, but it's supposed to be an asylum, a loony bin. And it was this long stretch that this train station had. And so we built these pillars in the train station to make it look like we were going down this continuous hallway of loony bins, and we just kept repeating and going, back past the same area and then redressing. And I remember that we were on a time crunch because the train was going to come, in 30 minutes or something. But so I'm in one of those passes, kind of just in the straitjacket, going back and forth.
How was your back at that
I was
point?
just going to say, like, that must have been you dealing with all the stress that you had dealt with.
Right, exactly. And the funny thing is I just don't take myself seriously as an actor. And so I just kept busting up every time the camera would get near me. I kept cracking up. And so I kept wasting our time, and they kept having to reset for me, and I'm barely in it as it is,
But you're a mental patient. They break out in laughter at any time. Speaking of that final scene, where did the idea for Rebecca Gayheart wheeling around this movie's killer to the Alfred Hitchcock theme come from? Was that all your idea?
I can't remember. I knew that I needed a button on the movie because it was my idea not to just kill Hart Bochner's character, because that's so unsatisfying, except for Die Hard, because the bad guy has a time to realize he's lost in the slow motion shot where he's going down. He's all this time to realize, that he lost, and then he dies. That's the only time it's satisfying, because I hate it in movies where it's a bad guy you hate, and then boom, he's dead. It's like, well, how did he even suffer? So I think it's always more satisfying for the audience, or at least for me, to see someone hauled away in jail, and suffering for the rest of their life. And so I wanted him not to die. And so therefore we needed sort of more of a button on the end of the scene. And I can't remember how that idea came about. It might have been one of the writers. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a great cameo, because fans of the original loved it. I didn't. Was Rebecca Gayheart happy to reprise the role? Do you think she would have played a bigger part if she was asked in the movie?
I'm assuming she probably would have. She seemed really, really gung ho and having fun with it, But also the day of shooting, she's probably like, "What the hell? Sure, this is."
Yeah. I mean, it's such for her, and she's been in a lot, but like that, her role in Urban Legend is pretty iconic to her career. She's so out there as the serial killer in the first one that it was such a treat for people who were fans of her in the first one to see her in the button of your movie. Yeah.
And do you have a favorite scene from the film, or a favorite one that you had fun shooting?
I mean, off the top of my head, it's probably not my favorite scene, but there's a moment that popped in my head that I was proud of, and that was where the Simon character was pummeled in this alleyway by the lens, because there's some cool shots in there, and I liked the way it was edited, and I shot these close-ups of mouths and the
screaming.
There's a shot where the lens rolls around.
Yeah, and that's where we shot that in reverse, that would roll, of course, on its spot, and so that was cool. And I had it reflect, and that was actually a real reflection. Of course, today you just do a CGI reflection, but to get that right, and so that scene I'm proud of. I was very proud of a lot of sequences in this film, because I think when I step back, I go, wow, that was a scene I directed really well. It came together really well. As a whole, the film is ridiculous, but as an individual scenes, I was very happy with them. Like the slaughter in the dailies, when they're watching the dailies. That was a favorite of mine. That's very editorial as well, but it's very horrific, because you're just getting,
really murdered.
Yeah.
And after the film was finished, was there a red carpet premiere? What did you think of seeing it on the big screen for the first time?
Well, I'd seen it on the big screen a few times at the test screenings and so forth, but I'm always just petrified in a premiere that it was in Westwood, at this big theater in Westwood. I forgot what the big theater is over there. And
I saw a YouTube clip of it was the premiere, and you had a full set of beautiful hair. Everyone looks great. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I was always concerned about the sound being loud enough. That's what I'm always freaked out about, because everyone in premieres is always screaming all the time. Someone's name comes up on screen, they're screaming, so you can't even hear the freaking music. So it's like, I hate premieres, because you're not really seeing the movie. You're really not, because you're not hearing half of it. People are rowdy. It's like, I can't stand premieres. So that
is the funniest answer we've ever had.
It kind of reminds me of when we have groups of friends over to watch a movie, and we all just talk during the entire movie.
Yeah, we just serial
you're never coming to my movie nights. That's what I say. I was more stressed out there than I was in a test screening. In fact, my first test screening, I was drugged up on what was it? It was Dilaudid. It was Dilaudid because ironic. Here's another crazy funny story for you. Probably TMI.
Please, we love it.
So the day before I passed, no, I had this a couple weeks before. A couple of days before, I had this terrible kidney stone that I was passing, and it was fucking. If you ever had a kidney stone, it was hell on earth pain.
My roommate had it 3 times.
My boyfriend
it's never good.
My boyfriend has, and he's told me how horrible the pain is.
Right,
the worst.
So the night of the test screening, the day of the test screening, even though it was at night, I was in such pain. I went to my doctor, and he immediately put me on this Dilaudid, it's like a morphine, and then flushed my system with tons and tons of saline, right? And so I was like super not stressed out for testing, and I had to drive to Pasadena with my music editor to go to the test screening, and we were in a traffic jam, and I was so full of liquid. I had to go pee, and there's no way I could. So I had this water bottle. Here I am with my a female editing music editor, and I'm peeing in this bottle while we're on the way to the test screen.
Wow.
That's a story
we always talk about. Did you hop in the back seat, or did
I bet you guys never felt
No, I'm in the front seat right next to her, peeing in the bottle, And
wow. Did she at least look away?
I think she was not looking.
That's hilarious. I mean, I would have.
I think she was way more embarrassed than I was,
I would have said, you know what, this is part of working in the
You're
business.
Like, listen, welcome to Hollywood.
Yeah, welcome to Hollywood. Look, was there ever talk of you working on a 3rd chapter to the Urban Legend series, or were you just done after the 2nd?
Yeah, I mean, I think because those were direct to video, right? And I didn't.
Did you happen to see it? The one directed by Mary Lambert?
I didn't know.
It's called Urban Legends Bloody Mary. And it came out, I think, 5 years after yours. Yeah. But yeah, did they ever talk to you about making another one after this was done?
No, because I think they knew I wanted to do theatrical, and it was probably just so low budget, and I don't know what I was doing at that point, moving on to something else. Yeah.
And then are you still in touch with any of the cast and crew from it? I know it's been 23 years.
No. I haven't seen them in years except for Anson Mount. There we go.
Yes, Anson Mount.
Totally cute.
Really cute.
Yeah. So now you remember, right? Yeah.
Of course.
So actually I directed an episode of Star Trek Discovery like a year and a half ago. And I was on the Strange New Worlds AR wall, watching them shoot a scene, so I would get familiarized with it for my scenes. And Anson Mount was there, and but it was masks and everything, and it was snowing outside. And I went, Anson is, it's Ottman from Urban Legend. I don't think he understood me. He's like, huh? He's like, hey, and it's like, but that was, and I wasn't able to connect with him in the set, but yeah. Well, it's weird. He was the one actor I butted heads with on Urban Legends. He was very, very, very. He was, both younger back then. He was set in his ways. I was set in mine, and we had a little bit of a knocking horns a bit. So.
Oh wow! Do you think he held a grudge this far after?
He should have killed him.
Of course, that's where my paranoid mind goes. He knew who I was, and he hates my guts or something. But
no,
it's really a shame. I would love to bump into these guys. We had a good time. And I always said they were always like little filmmakers in their own right, because some of the dialogue in that movie is really hokey, and to be able to change dialogue, believe it or not, back then was like you had to have paperwork sending back to the studio, approval and phone calls just to change the to the, or the to a, and it was crazy. So we had to live with a lot of this dialogue that on the set I realized, this is so goofy. How do we pull this off?
Well, I love that dialogue.
Well, good,
but Tim's dialogue in general is kind of goofy.
It's hard for me to get words out.
Well, but we would huddle together and we'd say, how do we pull this off? And so and this is what you always do on a set, of course, when you block the scene and figure out how to play it, And I really credit them to figuring out with me how to swallow, to make it, palatable, some of the dialogue, I mean, Hart Bochner, I have to credit him for his final speech at the end at the coffin, because that was all scripted out and he changed all of it, which became a big thing because, he was a little eccentric, let's say, and so
I saw Supergirl.
Okay. So then he pulled me the trailer and he goes, I want to rewrite all this. And that's the worst nightmare you want to hear from an actor. I want to rewrite all my dialogue, And so, but you know what? What he did was so much better because it was more real, coming from a plausible place from that character, playing into the whole plot and the idea of it, but just in a better way. And we got it approved and he made it really work. Yeah.
That's really cool. I know we've talked a lot about Urban Legends Final Cut, obviously, but I did want to move on to just a couple questions about just creating scores for film and television. I have kind of just a very basic, dumb question, just because we've never spoken to a composer before. And how does that, and I know this could be a really long topic, but I'm just wondering, how does the whole scoring process work? Do you go through the film and write each scene's music one by one, or do you start with an overall theme and then adapt that for each scene? How does it work?
You mean you don't think they just play the music on the set when they're shooting the scene?
Well, that's the way I did it.
There's an orchestra behind the wall over there.
No, because I know it's it's a very big thing to take on. I've always wondered, how do you start?
Well, usually, it starts where you watch the movie over and over and over again and try to see how to crack the movie. What's the sound? What is the approach of the score for this film? What is the sound of this movie? What is, what kind of score should this be? Should it be dark electronic? Should it be orchestral and traditional? Should it be, minimalist? And so those things hopefully hit you while you're watching the film. And it really depends on the situation. Or it could be a film where the director already has an idea. I want this kind of score, and then you sort of start writing, this is the way it should happen. It doesn't really happen this way anymore too much, but I'm old school. I'd write an overture to the movie. Here are all the themes I'm going to work from. Here's the well from which I draw. And then I play that for the director and to get an idea of what the thematic material is going to be. And then I use that to basically score my scenes, And to me, I'd be lost without writing the overture for myself first. To know what the hell the themes are going to be. Otherwise, I'm just kind of meandering. I'm kind of like, it's easy to lose your way. There's no story being told. There's no, to me, a score is like a symphony. You're telling a story you're not always doing them. Sometimes it's like some weird minimalist thing, but I always say that you could always tell a really good score if you could take it away from the film and hear a story being told, So that's usually the way that the process is. And then you start scoring the scenes and getting them approved. And
no, that makes sense. No, that's a great answer. Thank you.
Do you have any of your, like, among all of your scores, do you have a favorite? Because my personal favorites are, I like The House of Wax and Invasion, and my favorite is Pumpkin.
Chris, Pumpkin is one of my favorites.
Pumpkin. I just watched Pumpkin last night. I was telling my friends, I was interviewing you, and I said, "Have you seen Pumpkin?" So we watched Pumpkin. But my favorite scene is when it's Sam Ball's driving and Christina Ricci's dancing with Pumpkin, and there's a car crash. I just gave away the movie. So anyway,
no.
But do you know, obviously you know that score. That's my favorite.
So that's one of your favorite. Do you have any?
Yeah, because my favorite scores are the films that no one sees. It's like, it's a shame. Like one of my all-time greatest achievements was a movie called Incognito, which basically became that because it was never released. And so that was heartbreaking for me because it was like a canvas it was about a painter who was hired to rip off a long lost Rembrandt so people could sell it for millions of dollars. There's these long sequences of him painting this thing. And so there's no sound design. It's basically all music. And so it was a wet dream for a composer. And I just, based upon nothing, wrote this classical score out of my head. And it was one of the best things I've ever done. And then it was crushing that no one saw it. Then after that, I followed up with Snow White.
Monica
Keena, yes.
It was also a really good score, and no one saw that because it wasn't released as a theatrical, and it came out.
We saw it.
Showtime original later.
Weaver.
Yeah. We saw it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was hard to take. So, and then I followed that up with Apt Pupil, which is also one of my greatest scores, and that film bombed. No one saw that. So, and then
we saw it.
But and then because I really love psychological music and what makes characters tick and so forth, and being a little off kilter sometimes. And so the Pupil was like that for me. And, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is one of my all-time favorite scores. Again, a film that became a cult, but it wasn't a big hit, it's always those scores that are close to your heart,
So I'm a huge Halloween fan. And so I wanted to ask you about creating the original score for Halloween H2O and just how that whole kind of debacle with the music being changed happened.
What are you talking about?
I know. And I know there's there's the controversial aspect of it, but I do have a few questions because I'm a huge Halloween fan. Before we even get into that debacle, first off, so when you were hired to do the score, was there any talk about just like mimicking John Carpenter's synth score from the original Halloween, or did they always want you to?
No talk. Steve Miner, who I did Lake Placid with, no, I did Lake Placid after H2O. That's right. Sorry. Steve Miner found me, and because he knows I was sort of like this Hitchcock kind of, because The Usual Suspects is sort of people saw was sort of a Bernard Herrmann-esque kind of thing. And so he said, look, I don't want to do a Halloween score. I want to do like a Hitchcock score. And I said, okay, cool. That's awesome, And so I set off to do that score. And so internally we did that. And we as the famous hearkening moment to
Janet Leigh. Yeah.
Janet Leigh there. But the whole score was kind of done that. But because I am a huge believer in continuity, I really wanted to use the Halloween stuff. And so in my score, I used that famous dun, 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 all that kind of thing. And then wove it in to a Hitchcockian kind of context. Well, the Weinstein brothers were completely out in the dark that this was happening. So for all they knew, we were doing full, screech and, in your face horror stuff, because that's what they attempt music with. And so they were doing test screenings with that kind of music, and the test screenings were very high. So in retrospect, now that I'm not emotional about it, I understand that since they had, high test scores with that temp score, and there was no knowing what it would test with mine, which probably would have been the same or better. Who knows, but there was no time to find that out. That they basically went the safe route and says, let's just scrap all the thought. They said your score is too thoughtful for this movie, so we're going to scrap out all the things that are thoughtful, like Laurie Stroud's theme and so forth, and we're going to put in all the clunks and bangs, and so it became this like throwing in my score into a Cuisinart with Marco Beltrami's stuff, and it just became this thing which is just for me it's hard because there's no story being told. It's so uneven and discombobulated,
like Michael's Mask.
So well, I do, and I know there's a lot. So here's my first question: the big credits orchestral Halloween thing, was that?
Yeah, thank God they kept that, because
okay, so that was you.
Because that was like that's the primary example of the fusion of John Carpenter and Alfred Hitchcock or Bernard Herrmann that I wanted to do, and so that makes me happy that stayed intact. And it was sort of a strange little overture in a way, because it had Laurie Stroud's theme in there, that dee da dee da 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 dee da da. Da da dee da 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 da. I just remember it.
That's beautiful.
And so I wanted, because to me, horror is scarier if you believe it. And if you believe the characters and understand what they're going through, it's scarier. And so I really wanted to have this story being told about Laurie Stroud and believe her story so much that when bad shit happens, you're terrified, because if you're dark from frame one, everything's like weird, and it's like I don't believe it as much. Maybe that's because I'm an old man and I need to believe the characters, I don't know. But that's always been my thing. The more you believe, the more freaked out you'll be.
Yeah, and so just so you know, we have the H2O Blu-ray, and we watched all of the scenes with your original score on it, because they have a section, where you can watch all of them, and we really enjoyed it. Like, now we were wondering, it seemed like they kept a lot of your music into the pre-credits sequence with the nurse, that whole opening. We were just trying to think, because a lot of what you had was in that. I heard a lot in in terms of like compared to other sequences.
Yeah, I think they did until she's running out of the house. Maybe they changed that.
Yeah, they did change that. But the beginning, and also I will say, like, I love the little ties to, like, when she sees Dr. Loomis's picture and it goes to the like did it, the original.
Yeah, and I had this little in there a couple of times,
I think we should just sing the whole score right now.
Sing it.
No, but I totally see that it was a crazy thing. Like, looking back, are you still proud of what you were able to contribute to the music for H2O, or are you just happy?
Even the title sequence alone, I'm proud of. I mean, now that I can be objective about my own work, there's probably some seeds in there that even my music was a little hokey, and maybe it was better to put some of the Scream score in there and stuff. But as a whole, again, I think I told a story, and the whole film lacks continuity. And that is definitely a premiere I did not go to.
Oh, no. I was going to say, so did you ever meet Jamie Lee Curtis and get to?
No. Did I? No, I was on the set when I met the director, and she was there. I don't think I met her. I actually bumped into her at a dentist office once about 4 years ago.
What? Did she have a cavity?
Did you say, Laurie, I wrote the first score for H2O?
No, it was so fast. She was coming around one corner. I was going to, like, oh shit, I'm sorry. And she goes, oh, no problem. And then I just saw her in a restaurant night before last, in LA, called, that she helped save, John's Place or something? Anyway,
John Carpenter's Place.
Yeah, John Carpenter's Place.
Right.
When her food wasn't there, did she say, today?
Yeah, we love it. H2O when she has the oh, God. I love it.
You're quoting
what
it,
do you think
like
she would have said if you had been like, hey, John Ottman, I worked on H2O. What do you think she
probably would have been just, hey, she's such a cool, she seems to be such a cool person, down to earth, so she would have, but she was with her girlfriends, hanging out at the restaurant, and I didn't want to say, hey,
I know. I also, Halloween has kept going for her. I mean, think about the last 4 years of Halloween movies.
Yeah. We were going to play a little quiz. We were just wrapping up.
Yeah.
This is something I thought up. Just so silly. Because I don't know, Matt, you don't listen to soundtracks.
Not as much, but it's a little funny quiz for you where we're just going to give you the name of one of the pieces of music from your various horror soundtracks, and you tell us which horror film it's from.
Okay.
Okay, so the first one is Meeting Trevor.
Well, duh. This is from Urban Legends 2.
Right.
Yes. Okay.
And that's music I really like. That was that's sort of my thoughtful music in the film that I really liked. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Life Goes On, Dance of the Cells.
Oh, that is a little piece I created for The Invasion.
Yes. Oh my God. Okay.
Funky little piece there. Yeah.
Okay. Now this one, I feel like you're going to, yeah, this is an easy one. Not Your Average 9-Year-Old.
Oh, that's from Orphan. Yeah.
Yes.
I took great pleasure in naming my cues, you know.
I love them.
Go. Morgue, Scary Beaver.
I want to know what
that's a great title, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's from Lake Placid.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's been quite a few scary beavers in life. Okay, how about this? Paris Gets It.
Oh, Paris Gets It. That's House of Wax. Yeah.
Yep. Paris who?
I love that movie.
Okay, go.
Okay. Mall Mayhem.
Oh, that's from the Spider movie. Oh my God, what's it called?
Not 7, not 9, but
Eight-Legged Freaks. Yes.
Yeah.
By the way, I really like that score. I think it's a fun score.
Dollhead.
Dollhead. That's got to be from Orphan.
Oh.
Wait.
Oh my God, I thought he was going to get them all right.
Shoe, Robert De Niro.
Oh, right.
Children's Game.
No, I know.
Dakota Fanning.
Ready or Not, Here I Come.
Yeah. It's like that. Yeah.
Hide and Seek.
Hide and Seek. Yes. Yeah. So just a couple last questions for you.
Have you ever done a horror movie or sci-fi convention?
And if not, would you?
I haven't, and yes, I would.
Because you'll meet nerds like us.
Well, that's not true. What am I crazy? I went to them. I did like panels all the time. No, I did like three times in a row. I did panels at Comic-Con, like composing panels, you know. And then I learned that the worst thing to do is to go be on a panel where you haven't had a score out that year because you feel like a fucking loser, you know. And so everyone's out there because the question's always like, "What are you working on now?" You know, and like, well, you know, that much. And so it's I vowed I'll never do that again unless I'm actually working on a score.
Wait, John, can I just tell you what the next question we have written down is? But no joke. What are you working on now? Any projects you can tell us about?
Well, the funny thing is, you know, it's a long answer, you know, because I'm continually looking for since my whole game plan was get myself to a place financially, knock on wood, where I didn't have to be in a room 14 hours a day and stressing out and, you know, not seeing the world. And so I've been at this point in my life where I'm just looking for things to direct, you know, and I'm reading scripts, I'm developing stuff, not that they'll ever go necessarily. I'm realistic about that, but I'm trying to put projects together to direct, you know, and also enjoying my life and spelling roses finally for a change and remastering my old movies, you know.
Are any horror films in your future?
Well, that's funny you say that because there's not, but the holy grail is to me finding that low budget idea you can do in limited locations. That's a really good idea. And I would be all over it. You know, I'll tell you a quick little thing is when I was making the directing rounds a couple of years ago, they dragged me kicking and screaming to go meet Blumhouse guys, you know, and I was like, I don't want to go do a cheap horror, you know. And so, but after meeting those guys, I was so freaking inspired by their model where basically we give you $5 million, you go off and make a movie. We're not going to bother you. We'll give you notes if you want them. And I was like, wow, this is like how it was when I was my own boss making my movies. And I was so inspired by that model that ever since then, I was like, God damn, I need to figure out some sort of idea to bring them. So I absolutely would do that. Yeah.
I mean, I mean, there are many opinions on Blumhouse. I like Blumhouse. They definitely have their highs and their lows, but they are known for just taking any small horror idea and turning into a big movie.
They make movies and we hear about them and then we never see them. So
but now
Blumhouse
their
model is so many are going to fail, but then the one that doesn't fail will make them so much money it pays for the others that failed. They don't tend to do gory things. They do like some almost thriller-esque horror or weird like Megan and stuff, which is fun. But I just love to go for it. I want to see a knife through someone's throat. I want to see if I'm going to do
every
it
day.
Well, you know what you should consider?
I can think of a lot of people.
Yeah, you know what you should consider? Not that I have any right to be giving you advice, but like redoing maybe a Hitchcock classic. If you love Hitchcock and that feel, like I feel like Blumhouse loves rebooting franchises. Halloween, The Exorcist. They want to just get
that's like
everything.
Redoing a Spielberg movie or something. That's like almost sacrilegious.
Well, maybe if it's not not like Psycho where they just didn't maybe it's like a new generation version of it or something.
Well, it's funny. I just watched North by Northwest the night before last, and because I love watching remastered things, because you see like you've never seen them before or heard them, but and I thought, oh, this might be interesting as a remake because I don't think that was I don't think it was a great movie. It was kind of goofy to me in a way, although I loved it. And the Bernard Herrmann score is fantastic, but it's a little of a goofy movie. And I thought this would be interesting to remake and make it more realistic, but
yeah, that's the thing. When they did the Psycho remake and literally did it scene by scene, shot by shot, dialogue by dialogue, why would you ever need to see that?
Who's the lead guy in that?
What's his name? Oh God, it was Anne Heche, Julianne Moore, and Viggo Mortensen.
No, he's the hot one.
Viggo Mortensen? No,
the lead.
He's in the beginning.
We know this.
God, in the Psycho 1988.
Freaky. Who's in Freaky?
Oh, Vince Vaughn.
Yes.
Viggo Mortensen was Sam Loomis, but Vince Vaughn played Norman Bates. Yes.
Well, yeah. So like the whole thing of the 1988 version was just to have them in different clothes and like using like Rob Zombie music. So
and him watching her and masturbating through the wall. I mean, very necessary.
Yeah, well, that's always necessary.
So, John, first off, you've been incredible.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So the one question we ask everyone to end our interviews, I kind of feel like you've answered this with many of your stories, but I'm still going to ask, and in case you have another story for us, what is one thing that you can tell us about, let's say your experience working on Urban Legends Final Cut that you've never told any other interviewer, publication, convention, Q&A, podcast?
Well, I think I answered that with the backdrop.
Really
I was just going to say,
and the hair coming out, the wig, but that's got to be the one.
It was a great story.
It was a great story.
Yeah. Well, no, I'll tell you. Oh no, there's a funny part of that. So I was in the hospital recovering, and I get a phone call from Mike Medavoy, who is the head of Phoenix Pictures. And I was getting a lot of phone calls about, hope you get better. Hope you're fine. And I answer the call, and I was like, hello. And he goes, it's Mike. And I said, hey, Mike. He goes, don't fuck me. Click.
What?
Because he, it was a little bit of a conspiracy that I didn't tell anyone about my back problem. So he was pissed because I had been pushed around in a wheelchair, and in pre-production, they didn't know that. So my poor line producer really was on the hot seat because he didn't tell the studio I was in a wheelchair, all for those pre-production months, and there's one little funny story that, so as I'm scouting locations being pushed in the wheelchair, I came around this bend in this tunnel of this old, house or something. I can't remember what the location was. And around the corner is Brian having a location scout for X-Men. But all he sees is the wheelchair, and he's like, it's like blew his mind because he suddenly realized it was me, but he was thinking Charles Xavier, and so it's kind of a funny story how ironic it was. I was there, location scouting. He was there for his movie, and because I wasn't involved in X-Men 1 because of Urban Legends, and we were there at the same time, so it was kind of a funny story. You had to be there, I guess. Did he try to get Trent University to use, or he was just in the area? No, this was somewhere else. We're looking for, where she runs down those tunnels and all that. So it was it's like some tunnely place under some building somewhere. I forgot where it was. This is a question not on our notes, but I was curious. You have a fencing mask as your horror mask. Where did that come from? The black hole. Oh, okay. Because the black hole, I don't know if you remember these people who are the slaves on the ship, and the kind of like they're lobotomized now. They wear these. It looks like ski masks to me that they had on, under this hood. And so I was like, oh, that's a cool look, and so that's how I got the idea.
I was just thinking, I was like, maybe Jennifer Morrison took a fencing class.
You know what? It's funny. I figured you do have there's a great part when two of the guys working on it are wearing the winter coat of the killer from the first one, like just a small little thing. But I take it you obviously didn't want to have your killer just wear the same costume because.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I just wanted to be weird. And I like the idea of the breath coming through the mask in the wintertime. And it was just weird. I mean, it's like idiotic for a killer to have to wear that thing and try to stalk people with that thing on. But
did Jennifer Morrison really go into that water?
No, that was a stunt double.
Oh, okay, because it looked freezing.
Let's go. Well, look, John, thank you so much for taking the time to jog your memory and talk about this movie from 23 years ago. It was, I mean, it's such a pleasure for us to talk with you, to talk with the composer, to talk with
3 years later,
an Oscar winner, to talk, so thank you. Really, we really appreciate it.
It was a lot of fun.
Yay!
All right.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you again. We will definitely be in touch as to when the episode's going to come out.
John, you were great. No cobwebs at all.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, take care, John. Okay, bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Happy Horror Time.
This podcast is hosted by Tim Murdoch and myself, Matt Emmert. It's produced by Jacob Randall.
You can listen to the podcast directly on our website, www.happyhorrortime.com, or on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, or wherever you stream podcasts.
We release new episodes every single Monday. Now, the first Monday of each month is always a new interview with a horror star. Then for all the other weeks, we review a new horror film. But sometimes in some months, we may throw in an extra interview. Now, our reviews do contain spoilers, so please check out our social pages the Friday before release day to find out the movie we're going to discuss in our next episode. That way you can watch it beforehand and be in the know with us.
And speaking of our social pages, if you haven't already, make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and now even on TikTok at Happy Horror Time.
If you'd like to support the podcast, please sign up to be a patron at www.patreon.com/happyhorrortime. That's patreon.com/happyhorrortime. Now, patrons get access to our monthly bonus episodes where we review horror films from the past that fall under a certain theme. They get to vote on which films and themes we discuss each month. They get all our regular episodes ad-free and a day early. They get our monthly newsletter, The Happy Horror Times, which is written by our lovely producer, Jacob Randall. And they get autographed Happy Horror Time stickers. So if you're liking the podcast, please sign up to be a patron so you can enjoy all those perks and help us do what we do.
And finally, if you'd like to contact us directly, send an email to happyhorrortime@gmail.com. You can ask us a question, recommend a movie to review, or a star to interview, or just ask me out on a date.
I'm Matt Emmert.
And I'm Tim Murdoch.
And we hope you have a happy horror time.